All good things must come to an end. That tragically also includes the writers' strike in Hollywood, as they have now reached a tentative agreement with the studios to end the strike. But there is still hope, as the strike is not over just yet. The Writers Guild of America reached historic contract agreement to end a 146-day writers' strike. This deal is exceptional. Well, at least so they say, as rather amusingly, considering this is a Writers Guild strike, nothing actually appears to have been written as of yet as to on what terms the strike will end, or when or in what form the end of the strike might take. So there's the letter right here, and it says very little, honestly. We have reached a tentative agreement on a new 2023 MBA, which is say an agreement in principle on all deal points subject to drafting final contract language. So, to be fair, this does make a certain degree of sense. Before anything is truly official, it of course has to actually be written down in contract language, as whatever the two parties agreed to in the meeting room isn't actually binding in any way or form until it's down on paper. What we have won in this contract, most particularly everything we have gained since May 2nd, is due to the willingness of this membership to exercise its power, to demonstrate its solidarity, to blah 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 blah. You totally did good, trust us, and we haven't sold you down the river. Well, we can hope anyways. We can say with great pride that this deal is exceptional, with meaningful gains and protections for writers in every sector of the membership. Meaningful gains. Huh. Now, perhaps I am merely just a wizened old cynic, but usually when somebody's being very cagey with what exactly they've gained, and yet still explains that it's exceptional, remarkable, meaningful, I start getting suspicious. Now, of course, once more, to be fair, there might be all sorts of restrictions placed upon the announcing parties. There might be non-disclosure agreements, they might be, you can't discuss this, you can't talk about what we've talked about in private, etc. Entirely possible. They might simply not actually be allowed to say anything about whatever has been going on between the two parties, to the point that even bragging about it and giving out little tidbits and hints might simply be in violation of the contracts that they have agreed with. Entirely possible. I hope not, though. I really hope not. Since, of course, a lot of the major battlegrounds here were around things like artificial intelligence. Stuff like compensation and wages, well, frankly, nobody really cared about that. In fact, according to the rumors that were swirling around before the Writers Guild strike started, it wasn't compensation that was the big issues. As always, of course, the writers and the actors and everybody else is going, we want more! And the companies go, you already cost us assloads, please ask for less. The usual back and forth. But then a sort of pseudo agreement had already been reached there, because, it was just, okay, we're coming back after COVID now, we're trying to open up the belt straps a little bit, here, have a little bit extra. One of the biggest contentions was around the protection for artificial intelligence. Now, that will be the very interesting point in the actual contractual agreement, presuming we ever actually get to see it, as, has happened before in many cases, in fact rather frequent in these kinds of negotiations. Both parties will come out saying that they have achieved remarkable things. Oh, really? That's fantastic. Could we see it? No. Such things happens. But one of the big things, again, was that they weren't allowed to use AI to start replacing writers and authors, something already the studios had been looking into for quite some time now. They'd even gone so far with the actors, for example, to ask them to agree to facial scans and various things, where they scan their faces, their facial patterns, etc., when they carried out certain emotions and so on, and only much later, when all of this started to come to light, did the actors go, hold on, what exactly did I just sign over? Everything, in essence, as it turns out. But the writers are even easier to replace, and so they are going to require even more extensive protections. One of the initial demands, if memory serves, was that AI could not be used, full stop, at all, in any writing capacity with any sort of guild labor. So basically, if you had a contract with the Writers Guild, and you were using them for damn near anything else, you could not use an AI to even spell check, for example. and the AI certainly couldn't be allowed to analyze the text or provide alternative text or even suggest corrections or alterations to the text. It would just be a full-on blanket ban because, of course, the writers themselves know that their job isn't actually that complicated and could probably be replaced fairly rapidly with a decent enough AI. And if that AI in turn has access to all of the scripts they're writing, well, they are simply just training their replacements at that point. Meanwhile, the studios, of course, look at that and go, wow, this is going to be so much cheaper and far more likely to produce quality content as well. What remains now is for our staff to make sure everything we've agreed is codified in final contract language, and though we are eager to share in details what has been achieved with you, we cannot do that until the last I is dotted. To do so would complicate our ability to finish the job, so as you have been patient with us before, we ask you to be patient again one last time. Now, once more, if there were actually contractual limitations, I would honestly have expected them to mention it, but they do kind of suggested it would complicate our ability to finish the job. So maybe they're holding the company, they're sparing the companies their blushes, I suppose, because of the enormous concessions that they've made. Possible, that too, it has absolutely happened before. If that authorization is approved, the Board Council would also vote on whether to lift the restraining order and end the strike at a certain date and time to be determined pending ratification. This would allow writers to return to work during the ratification vote, but it would not affect the membership's right to make a final determination on contract approval. So this is the part that says that the strike isn't actually over yet. God bless. But it is potentially ending soon once the contract is in their hands and they can actually ratify that it says what they agreed to in the meetings. Immediately after those leadership votes, which are tentatively scheduled for Tuesday, if the language is settled, we will provide a comprehensive summary of the deal points and the memorandum of agreement. We will also convene meetings where members will have the opportunity to learn more about and assess the deal before voting in ratification. To be clear, no one is returning to work until specifically authorized by the Guild. We are still on strike until then, but we are, as of today, suspending with WGA Pickets. Instead, if you are able, we encourage you to join SAG-AFTRA Picket Lines this week. That is the Screen Actors Guild, who did at least come out and congratulate the writers for succeeding in their strike. This does make me all again a little bit suspicious. There seems to be precious little opportunity to actually release the deal before it is already voted on and ratified, suggesting that they might be trying to force something through rather rapidly, and considering the idea that the studio's entire plan was to try and strike the strikers in the pocketbook first and foremost, there might be pressing necessities among certain high-ranking members of the Writers Guild to close this down quickly. Alternatively, this could also go for the studios, as of course we know for a fact that a lot of the shows being produced, like the Saturday late-night TV show host nonsense, for example, is on complete hold whilst this is all going on. Now, for you and me, this is frankly a blessing, as it means there's a lot less garbage entertainment out there. But for the studios, who already are not doing very well after extended periods of lockdowns and COVID and delays and all manners of nonsense, not to mention the last few years of woke disaster upon disaster, a several-month-long writer's strike is going to put a pretty serious kink in all of their actual budgets. And again, considering the lack in the cash flow, that is not exactly going to be ideal. Both sides might, theoretically, have the other's nuts in a sling here, and neither side might even realize it, or both realize it, and so both must actually acquiesce to at least some degree on the other's demands. I suppose only time will tell in that regard, but I wish it would have gone on for at least a couple more months. Come on, let's at least make something historical out of this. Let's have it last for a year, shall we? Now that would be fun and engaging. And then we can have a pointless contract that achieves absolutely nothing at the end, just to dot the last I. Oh well, I suppose we can all continue English, hoping that what actually is produced out of this is not quite as ambitious as either side would have wanted. Particularly, it will be very interesting to see any mentions of artificial intelligence, as what would be really funny is if the contract comes out with big increases in salaries and in compensations, and then no mention of the AI. Because that might be the studios going, okay, we'll pay you the bribe to get you back to work and train our AI, and once we're done with you in a year or two's time, we're simply just going to cut every single one of you off. That would be funny. But, well, seeing as my objective here is for both sides to lose, if at all possible, I'd prefer it if a little bit of both were to happen. Some AI and some writers, for a long, long period, until most of Hollywood is nothing more than a cindering, burning wreckage. We can but hope. Until next time, I've been Arch. Thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again soon. Till then, have a good day.